Welcome to episode 6 of season 5 of Whole Lot of Wolves. We're your hosts. I'm Joshua Buckley.
I'm Paul LePage.
Back in New York City, our great producer, Mr. Alex Patakis.
Hey, guys.
And on the socials in Baltimore, it is Danny Paletti.
Hey.
And joining us once again, one of our favorite guests from Minnesota Wolves, it is Todd DeWitt. Todd, how's it going?
Good. How are y'all?
Good. Well, let's get into it. It was an interesting game. You know, started out, looked like Wolves were going to get a clean sheet, maybe 3 points against Newcastle, looking good, until it didn't. Kind of unfortunate deflection off Dawson led to the first goal, and then a screamer by Harvey Barnes turned into a loss. Paul, do you think it was just Wolves' bad luck, or is there a deeper problem here?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think the most disappointing element for me is twofold, in that we still don't look like a team that can take a lead and then build on it. And then conversely, we don't seem like a team that can take a lead and go backs to the wall and defend it and play it out for a gritty 1-0 backs against the wall win. So that's the two disappointing things for me. Were we unlucky? Yeah, to a certain extent. Certainly the first goal, 9 times out of 10, that's going in any other place. The second goal, not so much. That little shit's got form in doing that against us. So it was just very, very poorly executed in the build-up and letting that play out. So that was disappointing. But really, for me, it comes down to that we didn't play bad. Probably a draw was a fair result. But if we'd have just managed to kick on in that second half and get a second early-ish, we could have closed it out quite comfortably and maybe got on and made it 3. The chance creation was good. I thought Strand Larsen had a good game for what was expected of him. That was positive. The creativity from the side that they put out, where you're looking and you're really thinking, well, where's that difference maker? Is it just going to be attritional in the midfield, and we're going to be looking for opportunities from set pieces or some width down the flanks from the fullbacks? We're still able to create with the setup, which I think bodes well. But putting it all together, you got to be disappointed, I think, that they weren't able to come away from that game with at least a point.
What do you think, Todd? Unlucky or deep problems?
I think pretty close to what Paul said. I think you can see things are starting to click, but we may have a few players on our squad that don't fit the system as well, or maybe past their prime. I love Doc, but man, to not fully track his runner for that second goal, that was a little rough. Yeah.
Yeah, and speaking of Doherty, Gary O'Neill didn't call him out specifically, but he did say a costly mistake led to that second half goal. So we had a question from Drew Breyer from No Stupid Questions, right, Alex?
That's right. Drew Breyer, one-time guest of the show and a friend of show. Do we think that we will see Pedro Lima start to appear in Premier League matches soon?
Gotta, right, Danny?
I want to say yes. The fact that he's been, left out of the squad in the past and seems pretty far from Gary O'Neill's thoughts, at least for Premier League minutes. I'm not certain that I'm hopeful that it's going to happen, but I think that the midweek game might force Gary O'Neill's hand to a certain extent. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him this week at some point.
Yeah, Paul, I think he starts the midweek game, but at some point here, he's got to take Doc's spot on the bench, right?
I'd just rather him get a chance. That if he makes that mistake, you can put it down to him being neutral league, young, learning, all of that stuff. When Doherty's exposed the way he was, he's not getting any better. He should be knowing in the build up to that was what he was gonna try and pull off. So I'd much rather blood him. I'd much rather get those fresh legs on. Even like with the game, you had the opportunity just to go way more attacking, even when we're 2-1 down, and that could have been from the back as well. Like Rodrigo Gomez, he could have come on and played right back and had an attacking mindset, that you've got the other players in place, that you're going to keep two at the back, and he could have come on in that right back berth and just bombed on and try to be the difference maker that way. If you're 2-1 down, what's the difference if it's 2-1 or 3-1 at that point? So it's those little things that start to have you questioning. And I think even to that extent, it's like they did a good job in the first half, and then Eddie Howe comes out in the second and makes some pretty sweeping changes for their side. Now, O'Neill probably was pretty comfortable at that point, thinking, okay, they made those 3 changes, but we're still in the game, we're still leading, we're still carving opportunities. This is where I think he needs to play that game a little more strategically and try and build on what they'd got at that point. Now, that to me is not going defensive. That would have been bringing the likes of Forbes on to try and stretch it a little, that you've got the impetus, try and build on it. Don't go ultra defensive trying to hang on to that lead, because they've got weapons that they've brought on. They're looking to exploit. They've got more that could come. I think we missed a trick yesterday in not building on that lead and going for it a bit more.
You mentioned Forbes. Have you guys seen the Underworld movies?
Yeah.
He has. Forbes is look when he got mad at the referee. It reminded, you know what I'm saying, Danny. It reminded me of the main vampire's like main, or werewolf's main henchman. Like he just had that look, and I was like, that is a mean guy that you don't want to piss off in the middle of the street. So, what do you think, Danny? You think I'm right on with that? Yep, you're on mute.
I'm trying to cast my mind back to watching Underworld.
Which is actually that guy. A little movie trivia here. He is actually the one who came up with it and wrote it, and he's like a molecular biologist, which you would never realize by looking at him. But I don't know. It was just, a little off topic. So one thing that we did get to see was Andre's start, and whoa, what a start it was. He completed 100% of his passes, 100% of long passes, 4 duels won. His 40 passes was the most without misplacing a single one on record since 2003 and 4 by a player on their first Premier League start. Danny, I mean, it was a beaut to watch, wasn't it?
Yeah. I don't know. I was so impressed throughout the game. I think that he grew into it too. At the beginning, I think he was, understandably playing a little bit safe, but by the end I was, just so happy with that signing. I think he's going to be so important for how Gary O'Neill probably wants to play this year. I know that Gary O'Neill sort of has said that he's willing to compromise a bit based on our, the players that we did or did not bring in. But I think in terms of how Gary O'Neill probably wants to set up either in the future or now, I think he's going to be so important, him alongside with Trent Larson and his ability to hold the ball up. And we saw that happening for the goal as well.
Based on that, I know it's a full game, totally outlandish take based on what 70-ish, 75 minutes of football.
I know where you're going, and you are correct, sir.
I am going to go all out and say, just based on that sample size, he's going to be our most expensive departure.
Oh, wow.
Oh, I was going to say he's already our best player.
Yeah, well,
Talent wise, I think talent wise, he's our most talented player already on.
one goes into the other there.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, like Mike says, it make us a healthy profit, but I'd like to keep him longer than the summer.
Yeah. Oof. Yeah, he's spectacular. I was really impressed. I mean, his long passes were falling right at the feet of Semedo. I mean, precision. And Todd, I don't think it's a coincidence that when he came off, that second goal by Harvey Barnes happened. Do you think that was why? Does that goal happen if Andre is still on the field?
No, I think that goal doesn't happen. I also don't think that goal happens if Semedo's still on the pitch. I really liked him. It was very clear when those two players came off that we lost a bit of quality in defense. Yeah, it was there. Both of those players were two that I really enjoyed watching. Andre a little bit more because this is the first time we really get to see him shine under the spotlight. And I think he stood up and announced his presence. And I think Semedo just once again showed us how important he is to our team.
I think he was one who grew into it though, because he was coming up against Gordon, who's arguably a starter for England now, and struggled for the first bit, but he was one that gradually got into it. He had his moments. I think he got beat in the second half again, and Mosquera came in for a block. But you're right in that Semedo is probably best on those one-on-one situations as much as possible, where he's in tight and he's hard to get around. And I think you're right that if he's on the pitch, then it's a different story with that build-up for sure.
Yeah, I think Andre offered a real calming presence too. And Alex, I know you got the Andre kit. Is that what you're wearing right now?
It is actually, yes.
All
For the
right,
viewers
all
on
right.
the YouTube, this is just arrived today, which prior to the show, we'll let you in behind the curtain. Paul and I were talking about maybe the most improved part of Wolves as a club is their actual shipping time when you order from the store, because there's a drastic difference from this year to previous years. So
that's very true. That's very true. Did you feel like you could see Hobbs and O'Neill's vision with Andre in there as far as how they're going to structure the formation?
I did. Yeah, I think so. I mean, look, it's weird to say after they surrendered 2 goals, but Wolves were very comfortable in that second half. I mean, they really were. If Semedo doesn't come off the field, or maybe if Lima comes in for Doherty instead, and you don't allow Harvey Barnes, an inverted winger, to cut in on his right foot, which is obviously what he's going to want to do, we're at least talking about getting a draw out of this. So I felt like, yeah, you kind of expected there to be a push from Newcastle, but until the substitutions were made, I don't think that would have happened. Like, I think we looked more comfortable in the second half than we did in the first half, and Andre was a huge part of that. We really controlled the pace of play. We're a really hard midfield to play against, and we just fell apart at the end. Really, that's unfortunately how it went.
Paul, Lamina started out kind of more on the right side. He gradually came inside and scored the goal, was really bombing ahead, playing box to box. Do you like the way he was being used by O'Neill?
Well, just based on that goal example, the 2 players in the box were your central midfielders, which were, if Gomez wasn't slotting it away, which he could have easily done, it was Lamina in the back stick to put it in. So that's ideal for a move like that if your forward's crafting it and he's working and he's putting the ball across, that you've got at least 1, 2 to come in on the back of it. So creativity wise, I think it was an excellently constructed goal and exactly what he's looking to get out of that team if you do play a 4-3-3. And I think within it, just you have got some flexibility now, which we didn't have before, that there's a number of players that can come in and take a spot in that midfield 3. Doyle can come in, Bellegarde can play there. There's some variation, there's some options, because it's going to be a long season. All 3 of them are going to pick up bookings. So we're playing that we're playing versus suspensions and injuries and niggles and back-to-back games and everything. So I think they're really well suited to hopefully bedding in a 4-3-3, creating chances from it, hopefully kicking on.
Todd, what do you think of the formation? Do you think what changes would you make as far as either personnel or maybe just the formation in general?
I don't know if I'd make any for that starting 11 or change the formation. I think we've seen it start to click over the last, especially this week. Like we've said, they've looked pretty comfortable. It was just kind of a little bit of bad luck that first goal went in on Sunday. Could have done better here and there. So it's getting close. I think the only thing I would change was who Gary brings on as a sub. I think our subs, we have talent in a lot of areas, but I don't think that necessarily Wang or Doc they're just not clicking right now. There's something off about their game, and especially going forward.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Huang really fits in with this style, unless, like Paul mentioned in our group chat, maybe in the number 9 spot as the backup. I don't know. Okay, guys, it's time to look at the Mascara Squeezy Bum-O-meter. Paul, where you at?
What was the level of squeeze again?
It's 1 to 10. 10 being the highest, like, butt squeeze.
And that's bad. I just want to be sure.
Bad. Yeah, that's bad. That is
Okay.
You can't even get out a fart.
Okay, I'm just doing the squeaky bum time and making sure I'm comparing apples to apples. So I think it's gone up to like a 6.5.
6.5. Todd?
I'm at a 5.
Okay.
Just, out of 5. I think there's enough there that is encouraging. Yeah, there's little things here and there that we can do better, but I have faith in Gary and the starting 11 that we can get there.
Okay. Danny?
Yeah, I'd go 5 as well, right in the middle. Like Todd said, there's a lot of positives in our first few games. But on the other side of it, I do think that realistically, and this is the part that, worries me, is just that, there are plenty of managers that have lots of positives going for them and an unfavorable schedule and stuff that's out of their control, but who nonetheless end up having to take the heat for it. So that's why it's right in the middle.
Alex?
Yeah, I'm at a 5 as well, consistent with what everybody else has said. We always knew this stretch was going to be really tough to start the year, so I'm being patient.
I'll go ahead and say a 4 just to be different. I'm not worried. And now I'm going to address these clowns that are calling for Gary O'Neill's job. Alex, give me the spotlight on this. Come on, give it to me once. Y'all are out of your minds if you are trying to get Gary O'Neill fired already. Okay, I get it. 1 win in 15. Guess what? We were down our 5 best players at the end of last year. Okay, we can't consider that as part of the agenda. We knew this was going to be a tough schedule. We probably got a couple other games coming up. We're not going to get any points. November, December, those are the times where we judge O'Neill. He's still trying to figure out the formation. He just got a brand new guy in Andre who is going to be a legit stud, but how do you use him? Okay, can he make it so they can run a back 4? Okay, now you're trying to figure out all the pieces. We just got a lot in the transfer window, guys. I know there are disappointed people, but there were a lot of incomings. We've got a lot of talent on this team. Let it gel. And if they got rid of O'Neill, number one, they're not going to do it because Jeff Shee is cheap and they just gave him a contract extension. No way they do that. Only way it happens is if they are in last place at the end of December. Then we can talk about that. But no, you got to give him the chance. He hasn't changed. It's not like that Newcastle loss was on him, okay? He didn't have Nick Pope flying out of nowhere to knock Cunha's for sure goal in. He didn't knock the header in on the deflection like Dawson. Come on, guys. Nobody else is going to come in and be this magic manager that saves us, okay? Just patience. Paul, what are your thoughts?
Largely agree. It's just the issues of the seeing the same thing, and I'm probably going to go back to that Coventry game. That if you can't close that Coventry game out as the Premier League team when you've got a semi-final at stake, it's these little things that are starting to plant a few seeds of doubt in my mind. And yesterday's was similar in that has he got the real tactical nous? And it could be that, again, he's still young. He's still a developing coach, developing manager, coming up against certainly more experienced coaches in the opposition dugout largely again each week. So it would be, it's silly to get caught up in any real discussion about pros and cons of getting rid of him. Schedule-wise, I think back about was it the second season and we're going into Europe, and I think we didn't win. We didn't win for the first 7. We picked up a few points here and there for draws, but didn't look entirely fluid at the start of that season, and that one turned out pretty positively. It's like with anything, we just need that win. We needed that win last season against Manchester City when similar things were being said at that point in the season, and that turned us around fantastically. It could easily come on Saturday, a place that many of us probably aren't expecting it to. It could. So I'm okay as it is.
I will say that Coventry game, I know you're using that as the tactics. Because of injuries, we had to start Nathan Fraser at the number 9.
Yeah, it's not about starting though, it's how you finish.
Yeah. But
And
I mean, just as far as that bench was so weak. They had so many people. And I know that was a frustrating one. We had a clear path, but again, God, we are so injured. Danny?
Yeah, I just wanted to add a little on to what Paul said. I largely agree. And I think anybody who follows me on social media knows I'm largely in support of Gary O'Neill. I think he's the right person to sort of keep this group together. The credit that he has in the bank is largely due to how well he worked with the group and clearly inspired them to become better than the sum of their parts. But I think something I think about a lot is that this season is a big test for Gary O'Neill. This is his first time with a real preseason, his first time where he's been able to have a say in shaping the squad. He may not have gotten everything that he wants in the summer window, but what manager does? And I just think that even if the schedule is unkind to him, I personally am kind of okay with seeing him learn on the job, I suppose. But to Paul's point, you want to see actual improvement in that regard. And so, a lot of the substitutions that we've seen have felt very safe, and not necessarily in the sense of like protecting a lead or playing ultra defensive, but just safe in the sense of like, well, Doherty's been there before. And at least with him, like maybe his experience will get us through this, as opposed to, rolling the dice a little bit and finding some players who can actually make a big difference in those final, 30 minutes or 20 minutes or whatever. And the other thing that we want to see this season is him improving players, because I think that's something that we saw last year that we thought he was very good at, was improving players. And there's still so much room to grow in that regard. So, if we start seeing, Pedro Lima start to get minutes and more minutes, and he's getting better as a player, and Rodrigo Gomez gets more minutes, and, maybe even Andre, starts to evolve and fit into the Premier League even better. Those would be good signs to me, even if through this bad stretch, we're still not picking up as many points as we'd like. So, pressure is on Gary O'Neill, no question, even if it's premature to talk about him being sacked or whatever. It's huge pressure. It's his team now in a lot of ways, and he has got to get down to work, and I'm sure he knows that.
Todd, real quick, are you sticking with Gary O'Neill?
For right now. But I think if it gets to, I don't want to wait till November, December to really start putting points on the board. I think if we don't have, if by mid-October, if we don't have substantive points in making a case for ourselves that, hey, we are better than the bottom 3 or 4, which I don't know if we can based on results right now, then I think real questions need to be asked of Gary O'Neill, and if he is the one that can essentially save our season.
Okay, so you want points, right? The next game's Aston Villa, Liverpool, Brentford, Man City.
Yeah, absolutely. I want points. I just want his after the match comments of him being pretty kind of flattering towards Newcastle and saying they're a better team, they're above us. I wanted him to say something to the fact of they're a big team, but we didn't fear them. They just played a little bit better. And I wanted him to give out a rallying cry, not just be they should be better than us.
Yeah. I thought Wolves looked slow early, but I really felt like late in that first half, early in the second half, I was like, this is the Wolves I like, the scrappy bunch and everything. So it was disappointing. All right, guys, we have 2 matches this week. The first one is the Carabao Cup, Brighton versus Wolves. It's Wednesday, 2:45 Eastern time. Paul, what are you looking for?
An exact repeat of the first game against Burnley in terms of personnel and ideally the scoreline. Rotate the squad, get those players that we talked about getting some minutes, getting accustomed, getting acclimated, see the ball hit the back of the net, pick up a win and move on.
Alex, how many changes to the starting 11? I assume Saul will be in for this one.
Yeah, I would think Saul would play. That's one. I think Lima. I would say you could kind of pencil in at least 6. I think Doyle would get a start for sure. I think Rodrigo Gomez would get a start. It's easy to think about players who would come in, who they replace. Uncertain. Andre will get a much needed rest. That guy has he's like the only guy who could ever qualify for Diamond Medallion in Sky Miles because he's literally flying from Brazil to England nonstop. So he'll get a rest. I could see Huang coming into the starting 11 as well. And I would like to see Forbes. Just let him run at some people. Who cares? Like we lose. He looked great in a couple of minutes towards the end. Maybe not great, but it looked lively. So go for it.
Todd, what about you? Same formation?
Yeah, same formation. I know Gary said he'd probably make wholesale changes for this cup game. But I think you got to keep to as close to starting 11 as you can, especially since you said we've had a bunch of new players come in. This is a perfect opportunity to throw out just extra minutes. I just don't want to draw. That's all I want. I don't want to draw.
Well, in the case of a draw, it would go straight to PKs, right? Am I right with that? Oh, fun stuff. All right, guys, let's look at the prediction standings. Alex, you got 5 points. You bastard. You were the only one to get points. You should really feel ashamed of yourself for those Newcastle points.
Is it bad that I was rooting for a third goal at the end just to be right?
Yes, that's really bad.
Yeah.
That's really bad. Okay, well, he's got 5. Danny with 4. Me, Paul, and the guest with 1 spot. So, Todd, being the guest, we will let you go first. What are you thinking for this Brighton match?
Woof. I think it'll be 2-1 Brighton.
2-1 Brighton. Danny?
I'm going to go with the part of my gut that fears the worst. And to be the worst is 1-1, and we go out on PKs.
Home draw. LPK. Okay. Alex?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say too. Maybe 2-2. I don't know. I'll go 2-2 draw just for the sake of being different and hoping to be entertained. And actually, you know what? How about winning on PKs with a Jose Sa redemption arc already?
Oh, I love it.
Is that good for the discourse or bad for the discourse?
I really don't know. It stirs the pot, which is really what I'm here for at this point.
Gives us content, that's for sure. Paul?
I'm going to go Brighton and Hove Albion. I hate saying that word. 0, Wolverhampton Wanderers 2.
Okay.
2 goals again by Geddes.
I forgot about Geddes.
Okay. I'm going to say, I like 1-1. I think it's like Danny. 1-1 lose in the shootout. That's what I'm going with, unfortunately. Okay, now we got the big matchup on Saturday against Villa. Games at 10 Eastern, 9 a.m. Central. Paul, it's a big one, and really, man, we need some points.
We do, and it's a derby, and a lot of strange things can happen in a derby. So you got that to factor into it as well, that to a certain extent form goes out the window a little, and hopefully that's the case. Hopefully we're looked at as being someone who they can turn us over pretty easily like they did last season at Villa Park. So hopefully they take us for granted, this form clicks in a little better, and we pull off a surprise.
Danny, you have a quick little scouting report for us?
Yeah, I mean, I won't go too deep because I think everybody kind of knows what to expect from Villa these days. They've had a pretty settled squad through last season. But it should be worth noting that they play their first Champions League game this Tuesday. So that would be tomorrow as we're recording, but maybe today as you're listening to it. And I was looking at their schedule. I'll be honest, I don't really understand the new Champions League format. It seems crazy to me. But it just seems like, even though this is one of their easier games, so they're playing BSC Young Boys from the Swiss League. They have a bunch of tough ones also, and I have no idea what number of games they need to win in order to feel comfortable with their place on the Champions League table or whatever. But it makes me think that they might need to use some starters in that just to make sure, because even if it's one of the weaker teams in the Champions League, it's still a Champions League team. So anyway, that'd be something interesting to look out for on Tuesday, is just to see who of their main people actually start in that game. So, I mean, we obviously know a lot of the danger men, Watkins, of course, Ramsey, McGinn, Tielemans, and Onana in midfield. Emi Buendia made his return in their win over Everton, coming off the bench. And obviously John Duran came off the bench to score the winner. So those are the obvious ones. And one thing I was thinking about is that, Luca Digne has been playing left back for them. A little bit surprising, I suppose. And I think he's been playing well, but he's also a player who kind of goes hot and cold. And it'd be interesting to see if we do something to put pressure on him, the way that Strand Larson was sort of out on the right for our goal, or even like bringing in someone like Carlos Forbes who can kind of run at him and put pressure on him. That'd be something interesting to see.
Todd, how do Wolves stop Ollie Watkins?
Dawson and Mosquera. I like that pairing. That's it.
Okay.
I think they have shown that Mosquera, while he's young to this league, I think he's going to play a big part into stopping that attack. And I think with Dawson alongside of him, it'll be solid.
What do you think, Alex? Based on the lineup from this last Saturday, any changes heading into the Villa game?
I would say, well, I guess the health of Aït-Nouri looms large, so that could be one enforced. If he's healthy, then certainly he would remain in the first team if I had it my way, even if some would argue that maybe Totti could play. I mean, I think the midfield three have to remain the same. Yeah, I would almost say no changes for me.
Okay.
I think
Well, let's
Dawson
talk-
has been a little bit of a stabilizer. I mean, he's made a difference. It's funny that we think that the old guy, the balding old man, is like the one who probably wouldn't be able to play in the back four. But honestly, he's him and Mosquera seem the two that seem more up for it than anybody else. So I agree
I
with
seem
Todd.
to remember somebody laughing at my over-under line that I set for Craig Dawson a few weeks ago.
Well,
I think it's going to hit the over.
yeah, I think you're right.
Yep. Okay, let's talk predictions. Todd, what you got?
2-1 Wolves.
Ooh, I like it. Okay, Danny?
I'm still feeling very pessimistic. I don't know why. I'm going to say 1-0 Villa it's going to be even for a long time. And that one goal is really going to bother me.
Ugh. Alex?
I'm going to say 1-1. We get a result. Reasons that Danny stated. They do have a Champions League match. We're going to play a fully rotated squad. I know we play midweek too. And how quickly can you recover from a trip to the Wankdorf? Did you know that Young Boys Stadium is called the Wankdorf? How incredible is that? That's just for you, Josh, because I feel like there's no way you knew that. And you would definitely get the biggest kick out of it.
Oh, my God. I mean, what is the most pedophile organization that could sponsor that team?
Young Boys, Wankdorf. Like, what else do you need?
Oh, Jesus. Brought to you by the Epstein Foundation.
Oh, my God, Josh.
Paul?
I think in that typical cliche of a local derby, I've got to go with Alex that I'd take that 1-1 and probably snap your hand off for it right now.
I'm going to say 2-2 with Wolves coming back with 2 goals in the second half to pull the draw. It'll be a thriller. That's what I think. And I'd be happy with the draw as well. Won't get lucky with that third one like Ruben Neves a few years ago, but yeah.
For what it's worth, Calvert-Lewin found some space in behind. So if he can do it, certainly someone like Cunha could.
Mm-hmm.
No Stupid Questions is presented by Esfuerzo Wines. Located just north of Santa Barbara, California, Esfuerzo Wines showcases passion and 3 generations of winemaking in every bottle. So whether you're celebrating a Wolves victory or winding down after a day at work, let Esfuerzo Wines transport you to the heart of California's wine country with every sip. For a limited time, head to esfuerzowines.com and use the promo code WOLVES for a 15% discount on your wine purchases. This message is intended for those of legal drinking age. Do not drink and drive. Excessive alcohol consumption may be harmful to your health. If you or someone you know is struggling with alcohol abuse, please seek help. Esfuerzo Wines reminds you to enjoy their products responsibly and in moderation.
All right, our favorite part of the show, listener questions, and they come each week via X at WLW Pod is where you could submit them. Danny is monitoring that at all times. Hello at wholelotofwolves.com is our show's email address, and we have got quite a question from our friend Stu from the Wolves fan cast who X'd us so much so. So this question is so good that I think we're going to devote the entire segment to it today because it just necessitates it. So Stu asks, the Wolves atmosphere that a lot of you fell in love with the early Fosun days has now gone. Molyneux is now a commercial shell of it was 4 years ago. Do you think that the club as it is right now would entice you as a new fan like the pre-COVID one did? So, Josh, I guess we'll start with you.
Yeah, because I feel like this is mostly targeted at like me and you and a lot of others that we met in Annapolis and Fort Lauderdale. It's a great question. I still like the badge. I still like the kits. I do think, and this has nothing to do with Fosun, I love the team we have. I love the players, but there's not really that one guy that stands out that you're like, yes, that's an exciting guy. Now, Andre is going to be really good. I think if you're a soccer fan, you really love his technical ability, but he's not somebody that really just kind of stands out like Adama does. So I think that plays into it. Again, the corporate shell, we're used to that in America. Like it's not really much new. I mean, I went to the Houston Texans Bears game last night. Everything is as a sponsor, I mean, even the extra points were sponsored by some marketing company, which my wife was like, well, they got their money's worth today. Yeah, I do think they need to do a little better job catering to Americans still, because COVID as well. One thing that they had with that was they were like the only show in town, the EPL, so that helped bring in people. I'd like to say I would still pick Wolves. I don't know though. I don't. I'd like to say I would. Todd, you're shaking your head.
Yeah, absolutely. I love Wolves. I don't think Wolves as an organization needs to cater to Americans any more than they have. I fell in love with this club because
I agree with that.
because it represented that local community there. I fell in love with this club because we weren't a flashy team, but that I felt the Mick McCarthy team that I started watching, they were the underdogs. They gave me a story of something to cheer for. They went to Man United and won. They weren't the best, but they didn't fear anyone. And I think that's why Nuno was also so great, is because we scalped a lot of big teams. You can look at the Liverpool results. You can look at just making it into Europe. Like, they gave us Nuno and that team, Mick McCarthy and that team gave us something to rally behind. We weren't a big flashy club. We were the local boys that were giving it to the big six and even beyond. With this new corporate shell and this new ticketing scheme, I wouldn't fall in love with this. I would have a hard time resonating with this club when I see videos of a second goal going in and there being empty seats in the South Bank. Like, that to me should be a big red flag to Jeff and everyone at that club that, hey, something is wrong. Like, we should not have empty seats at a home game. I think that club, since it's not a touristy destination, they need the community behind it, filling those seats, singing the songs, like getting behind that team. And what Jeff and the club have done, have taken some of the heart and soul out of that team and out of that community.
The crowd is definitely quieter this season, and I hate to say it. And Todd, you brought up a point. I don't think they need to cater to Americans. I agree with you there. But it is going to be kind of harder for Americans to latch on unless they start getting some of those crazy results that we were with knocking down the big clubs. Danny?
Yeah, so I saw this one coming, and I wouldn't say I'm excited to talk about it, but it put me in the mind that I was asked to be on a couple different guests on a couple different podcasts last week that were more general about football, and people asking me how I became a Wolves fan. And so I'll just leave the longer rant for those. So, those will be coming out eventually, and you'll see them on my social media. But the Cliff Notes version is that, my strong feeling is that, people find their teams in so many different ways. But I think that if you're talking about American fans latching onto Wolves, something that I see is that, like Josh said, we're used to the sort of like corporate structure of American sports and feeling very disconnected from the organization that runs the team. We may still love the team, but the organization itself, you more just like kind of like the players or whatever. But the thing that Americans find when they look at, European soccer, the Premier League, wherever, and even, now as we're starting to see more lower league stuff being broadcast, like, is this real authenticity that comes with watching a local community support their team. And it seems like such a silly, like, small thing, but it is the thing that keeps you there. Stuff like the badge or a certain player who's like your nationality or whatever, those are things that catch your eye. But the stuff that keeps you there, that like makes you devoted to a team, are much more about like connecting to like what is a sports team? Like, what is the core of a sports team, if not the place that it is and the people who support it? Because who else is going to be there, in 10 years, in 20 years, in 50 years? I think Fosun have brought some of the best times for Wolves fans, but no one thinks that even if they, start to get better public sentiment, that they're going to be around for 50 years. That's just not how sports works. And so, I just think these kinds of things, just like Todd said, you have to have your stadium filled, especially when you're not a team that's in London or in a big city where you can just kind of count on people coming through. And if you raise ticket prices like this, you're going to end up with a much quieter ground, and one that just, like, honestly, like, even for the most shallow possible reason, doesn't look that great on TV. Like, you know, to talk about like catering to Americans. If you want to cater to Americans, you know, show us loud, passionate fans who like desperately want their team to win. And like the fans are supporting these players and this coach despite, you know, a tough fixture run and a lot of things against them, even, you know, transfer strategy and Jeff Shee and whatever else we like to meme about. But it's like, you got to give people a reason to actually show up. And that kind of stuff just really bothers me. Like, I want to see people who desperately care about their team because it's the biggest thing in their lives, you know?
Mm-hmm. Alex?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think I'm a little bit ashamed to admit it myself. And when I saw that Stu tweeted this question in, I even responded and said, like, I don't know that I really want to answer it on the pod, but it is kind of geared towards people like us, right? So I think that, you know, I do a weird thing, especially, you know, in my recent, I would say last 6-7 years obsession with European football, where I just go down these ridiculous rabbit holes researching every single thing about a club, right? And Wolves tick so many boxes. They caught my eye when watching them because they had players like Adama and Ruben Neves and players that were exciting to watch. And then when you dove into it, you were like, okay, this new investment and in the grand scheme of things, like a huge Chinese conglomerate is a lesser of evils when we're talking about nation states owning clubs. And, there being reasons to be morally conflicted when supporting a lot of clubs throughout the world, right? So I was like, okay, well, that's really cool. And then you look into a rabid fan base and a stadium that's a really hard environment for people to go to. And that's something that you can identify with, a chip on the shoulder, all of those different things. But I would be fooling myself if I said that part of the appeal to Wolves was that they were clearly on the ascent. And I felt like that if I'm just going to be like deep diving into this, I was getting in at a time that felt like it was a really good time to be a Wolves fan. And I think you have to look no further than the comments from Jeff Shee when you ask yourself, what do I value in supporting a team? And it's not even that I need them to win a trophy. They're not going to do that anytime soon. It's that I need the illusion that you're trying. And I think that I'm already too deep so like there's no going back now. But if I, did my deep dive, let's say I just turned on the Premier League for the first time ever yesterday, and then I started researching things about the club, and I stumbled upon that article, that Express and the Star interview or whatever it was, letter that he posted, I would read that and I would say, next,
No,
this
thanks.
guy's a freaking chump. Like, are you kidding me? Like, who the hell would want to sign up to support that? And that's really hard to overcome. So I'm thankful in a lot of ways that I fell in love with Wolves when I did, because I do think there's going to be better days. And I really do still believe, whether he's insulted at being asked this or not, that there's going to be days not that far from now that Jeff Shee is not the person that we have to bitch about on this podcast. But for right now, we kind of have to endure deal with what feels like a very flat Molyneux, which is really sad to say. But more than anything, it's more sad for people like Stu and the people who spend their hard-earned dollars to go there every single week, because it's part of their identity and it's part of the fabric of that city. So easy for me to say on my couch when I'm, just turning on Peacock at 10 in the morning or whatever. It matters more for them. And that makes me sad a little bit.
I will say, picking Wolves has been one of the best decisions I've made in sports fandom. And it's not just because of the success or lack thereof sometimes on the pitch. It's really the fans. I think our community is really special. The U.S. Wolves community is awesome. We've gotten to know a lot of the guys overseas and everything. It's a fun group to be a part of, because you're not like this huge thing. Like, everybody is. It almost feels like we're extended family that hate each other sometimes. But I still love being a Wolves fan, and I'm not sorry I made that decision. And like Alex, I'm kind of glad that I got on the train when I did. It's been a lot of fun, and I'm still on it, even though my boy right there, Adama, is not with it. That's okay. I still love the club. There's still a lot of exciting players. Paul, do you have anything to add to this? I know you didn't really have a choice.
Yeah, but I go back just the whole like workman, like blue collar culture, and a lot to what Todd said about the team on the pitch should be a reflection of the folk in the stand, and vice versa, and the team would take so much from that rabid, vibrant fan base. And just I'm thinking back now to like that Man United semi-final. You could see the camera shake with the goals, you know. You could hear it. It was palpable. Thousands of miles away, you felt like you were in that ground, and that was solely thanks to the 30,000+ that were in there. Now, contrast that to Sunday, night and day. And what really pisses me off is that she won't care. She's looking. He would probably spent the second half counting the empty seats, and then looking up in that quadrant and thinking, "Oh, I could have fit another 2,000 Geordies in there." She'd actually have that whole section taken up. You could easily have in the Premier League 5,000 capacity away fans at every home game, and that's what I'm worried about. That he'd do it. He'd be counting those empty seats up and thinking, "Okay, I've still got a ways to go because I've still got capacity to fill, and it can be from the away fans." And there'd be 5,000 every game, and turning it into even more of a home game for the away team than it was yesterday. It certainly came across. So I can't see anything out of this commercialization unless they go away, and even then it comes down to, well, who buys them? They're really looking into the economics of the area, of the customer base, of that core support, because it should be like any business should look at that on Sunday and think, well, I haven't sold my capacity, and my price is too high. Can I bring in some flexible pricing that, okay, if we've got a big game and we're expecting a sellout, then they're set at this price. But for all the others, if they're up to a point, then start them low, and as it gets closer, then you can raise them if it looks like it's going to be a sellout. There's so many ways of flexibility around that capacity that they could make the most of. And it got derided a little bit, but even put in purchase plans out there. I think one of them was you could buy tickets for 3 of the games in a little package. That I quite like, you know, that it gives the opportunity for those people that a season ticket may not be feasible, it may not be affordable, but at least throw them a bone. So they should be doing much more stuff like that instead of what feels like a middle finger to the whole fan base, that you've excluded that core support. The folk that are coming in aren't, you know, talk about overseas fans as much as you want. Are those plastics that have only ridden on the bandwagon the past 3 or 4 years, are they going to be coming? No, arguably not, if this goes tits up. So it just feels like right at the moment that the fans are squarely getting the middle finger from Jeff Shee and co, that he doesn't care, they don't care, and we're stuck, and that's what's most frustrating about it. And that's what probably pisses me off a little about the performances as well. And it's like I don't know, just a downward stream, because it is a lot better when the team's winning and you're scoring goals. And
Right.
does that bring a couple of thousand back if you're not on a 15 game losing streak or whatever it is? So there's peaks and valleys, but at the moment it's not looking good.
I will say though too, even if Fosun sells at this point, nobody's buying a club and dropping ticket prices. The ticket prices, like where they're at now, that's where they're gonna be. That's as low as it's gonna go. So it's weird. I mean, look, I went to a football game last night. I was in the upper deck for $300 a seat. It's, you know, It sucks. It sucks. It does.
All right. Well, thanks to Stu for submitting that question, and to everyone for submitting your questions as well. We'll hit them. We'll continue to take questions from everybody, but we did feel that we needed to go a little bit more in depth on this. So, yeah, that will conclude this week's edition of No Stupid Questions, brought to you by our friends at esfuerzowines.com. As you see on the ticker there, if you're one of our viewers on the YouTube channel at A Whole Lot of Wolves, esfuerzowines.com. Use the promo code Wolves, get a 15% discount on your order. Believe me, the wine is good. The people there are great. It's a family business. It's really good. And I could also say with a degree of confidence, looking at the fixture schedule, you're going to need something to help you through the next couple months of watching Wolves. So head to esfuerzowines.com.
Danny, there is Misery Loves Company, which is good because the Premier League Fan Fest is on Saturday in Chicago. What are some last minute details for people that can make it, unlike Todd?
Yeah, that's right. If anybody wants to go out there and gamble on a famous victory at Villa Park to turn around our season, maybe a good time to decide to. But yeah, details are starting to come out. I won't spend too long because there's going to be stuff on social media that we'll put out as well. Keep an eye on our Twitter account, also the Wolves USA Facebook page. If you're in there, you'll start to see some stuff. But basically, some people had a little meeting this morning with some folks over at the club to just confirm some of the events. So, there's going to be a sort of pre-fan event on Friday, the day before the match, around 3 p.m. That's at Fado Irish Pub. That's sort of going to be the base of everything. And then they're going to be, obviously everybody's going to come into the Fan Fest early in the morning like we did in Nashville. And then right after full time, they're going to head back to Fado Irish Pub. That's at 100 West Grand Avenue. And so there's going to be sort of events happening the whole time. So keep an eye on social media. And probably the big thing, the most exciting thing, the thing that's, making Todd wish that he hadn't made other plans for this weekend is that the club have told us that Jody Craddock is going to be there for the duration. So there'll be plenty of time to meet a club legend. There's going to be a Q&A at some point as well. So yeah, keep an eye on social media, see all the events that are happening. And big thing is to always, wear your Wolves colors, be like Todd, bring a different Wolves shirt for every meal.
Mm-hmm.
so that everyone can notice who you are, and also so the cameras pick up our big group.
Todd, how can people get a hold of you?
You can find me at Todd DeWitt on Twitter, Instagram. Come find us at Black Heart of St. Paul every match day. One of us will be there, whether it's a midweek fixture or not. One of the members of Minnesota Wolves is guaranteed to be at the Black Heart anytime you go there. But yeah, if you're going to Fan Fest, take all the pictures with Jody Craddock and then send them to me so I can truly feel like I'm missing out on something.
That brings this week's show to an end. Thank you to Danny on the socials, Alex producing, and you, the dear listener or watcher. Thank you for your continued support. If that wasn't happening, then this show wouldn't exist. So we will be back this time next week to review everything that's happened in the Cup and at Villa Park. So if you're going around Chicago, or if you go into the Molyneux, you can look to your side, look past that spare seat to the fan opposite you and just say, "Up the mighty Wolves."